The next person is Ivu Chibueze. Please go ahead.
Okay, good morning. Good
Good
morning,
morning.
everyone. Okay, I feel what drives the perception of everyone for a particular product is the goal. I intend, just like for the vintage car, as a vintage car collector, the goal is that either I become the best car exhibitor or whatever, or that I get the prize, that's the $100,000. So I think it's the goal that drives the perception. Thank you.
That's a very good point. It's the goal that drives the perception. Okay. Now let me add another, because somebody here said all in. Like, okay, if I'm winning 100,000 prize by getting this car, I should offer 100,000.
Bye.
Yeah. So, goal is what determines your value. Now let me add some more information. If you don't buy this from me, I will sell it to somebody else who is willing to pay me 13,500. Now think of this. Here is a car for which you would pay, for which your budget is 22,500. And if you get it, you might win a great prize. But on the other hand, if you don't buy this, I will sell it for 13,500. What is happening here? 13,500, 22,500, and 100,000. Earlier, Ivu said that our objective, our goal is this 100,000, and we should pay as much as possible to reach this goal. And if our budget is 22,500, we should go 22,500. But on the other hand, when I give you this information that, look, if you don't buy, my other alternative is 13,500. And now I can see James says 14,000. Value drop, somebody has written here, value drop based on demand. But value has not dropped because of demand. Demand is still the same. You are there and you want to win this 100,000. What has dropped is now, or what has changed now, is your perception. Our first respondent, Dumebi, she had said that perception of the product. Earlier, you were buying a product which was creating value for you. Now you are buying a product where you know how much value are you creating for the other person. And that is the real crux of any negotiation. In every negotiation, so earlier there was a question, what is negotiation? In every negotiation, both the sides are trying to create value. That value can be created by entering into a business deal. That value can be created by settling a conflict. That value can be created by, identifying a new solution to a problem that we are trying to solve. But what we are generally not aware of is the value we are creating for others. What we are doing is, we always look at value that the negotiation creates for us, and we are ready to pay as much as, as the value that we are receiving from any negotiation. And that often creates not losses or conflicts, but that often does not allow us to see the negotiation situation perfectly. John, who was earlier ready to pay me 200,000, now says 14,500, which is a very, a fair thing to say, because even when I am getting 14,500, I am happy because it is better than my alternative. While for John, also it is good because he doesn't exhaust his budget, which is almost 22,500. For me as a seller, it is important to know that John has a budget of 22,500. On the other hand, for John, it is important to know that if I don't sell this to him, I have another buyer who is offering 13,500. So, in other words, in any negotiation, the fundamental element that we have to always identify is the value that we are creating for the other side. But the question is, how do we know that? Because when John says that, look, I cannot pay you more than 14,500, all I am looking at is this number. While for me, the information of real importance is this, that John is a collector and he wants to win that coveted prize at the next competition. John does not just want to buy the car. John needs the car because he wants to win the prize. The real need is the prize that John wants to win. So, what is happening here is when we focus on positions that people take, like what happened at the very beginning in this exercise. When I said 16,500, you started offering different numbers, from low numbers to high numbers. 3,000, 5,000, 7,000, it suddenly became an auction. Why? Because we were focused on positions, specific numbers. And when we are focused on numbers, it is very easy to get into a competitive mindset, because numbers are easy to compare. But numbers also blind us, and they don't really allow us to understand how we are addressing needs of the other individual, other people. That's why it is very important that in every negotiation we focus on two elements. Element number one is the need of the other side. Why the other person is doing this negotiation? What is it that they are really trying to achieve out of this? And second important element is, and this is a question we have to ask in any negotiation, if I don't close this deal with this individual, what would be their outcome? In other words, what is their alternative? Where will they go? Like IG mentioned in the chat, a very important term called Batna. Batna is a concept that was introduced in the year 1984 in a book called Getting to Yes. Those of you who are economists, you know this as opportunity cost as well. Batna basically means best alternative to negotiated agreement. Whenever we negotiate, there should be alternatives, and what happens is that when we have alternatives, we always measure our outcomes against those alternatives. Like, for example, we have many MBA students who are graduating now, and when they are graduating, they receive several job offers, and they always try to compare. So they have one offer, then they have interviews with other company, and the other company says, look, we are ready to offer you this, this position. So they compare, okay, is this better salary? Is this a better position? Is this a better company? And then they take this, and then they negotiate. So when we have alternatives, we use those alternatives for two things. One, to set our expectations, like we have mentioned here. But alternatives also play another important role. And for that, let me tell you a very quick, little anecdote. Several years ago, somebody from my family was working in a university in the US, and they were asked to, leave because the university had no endowment and they were closing the research center. So they said, look, we are closing the research center, so please, you look for another job. You have a few months' time. So this gentleman, he thought, I have always worked in a university. Let me try a job in corporate sector. So he started applying, and somebody said, look, if you want to work, go and work in Google because that's the best company for somebody like you. So he said, okay, if Google is best for me, let me go and work in Google. So he applied there as well. Now what happened? He had applied to different companies. First company, I think it was Hulu, the streaming company, they said, we are ready to make you an offer. He said, don't make me an offer. They said, why? He said, look, I'm interviewing with a lot of companies. I'm changing my job for the first time in my life. I have worked all my life in academia. Now I'm going to corporate world. I don't want to take a wrong decision. So I want all my offers on the same day. Can you wait? They said, okay, we will wait for a few days. You can, move on. But we won't wait forever, 1 month. After a couple of days, a startup said, we are ready to make you an offer. We like you. He said, don't make me an offer. They're like, you are interviewing and you said, no offer. No, 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 make me an offer. But when the other company makes and when all my, so I want all the offers on the same day. Went to another one, another one. Finally, he finished all his interviews with Google and he was bright. So Google said, we are ready to make you an offer. He said, no, no, don't make me an offer. What? I mean, make me an offer tomorrow because I need to inform those companies that now I'm ready to close my recruitment process. So on the final day, every company sent a very competitive offer because every company was aware of the fact that somebody else also wants the same bright candidate. What happened? The alternatives, they not only drive your expectations, but they also give you power in the negotiation. The singular source of power in any negotiation is alternatives. That's why we always have to keep in mind, often in a negotiation we feel, oh, I'm negotiating with this person, I don't have any power. I'm negotiating with this individual, I'm negotiating with government. Yes, they are all sources of power. Gender, social status, organizational status, knowledge, hierarchy in the organization, they are all sources of power. But one source of power which overrides all of them in the situation of negotiation is alternatives. I mean, I was just sharing with a colleague this morning. Last Sunday, I have two kids, a 6-year-old daughter and 4-year-old son. My 6-year-old said, Daddy, it's so hot. I want an ice cream. I said, look, no ice cream. You already had chocolate this morning. She said, but if I don't get ice cream, I will be so sad. Do you want me to be sad? And I was like, there is no alternative. I don't want you to be sad. Take this ice cream. And then my wife said, don't talk to kids when I'm not around. So, the thing is, whenever we run out of alternatives, we lose control over negotiation. And that's why it is always important to keep focus on Batna, on alternatives, and not just ours. What is the alternative of the other side? Because only when we know what is the alternative of the other person, we know who has more relative power. We might be negotiating with, a big institution, but the big institution may not have any alternative, while we may have an alternative. So that's why Here, for example, we have an entrepreneurship center. So we train entrepreneurs and we train investors. And often what happens is that we ask investors, when you negotiate with an entrepreneur, who has more power? They say, oh, it's always the entrepreneur. They can go to any other investor. And when we ask entrepreneurs, who has more power? They say, of course, investor. They can go to any other entrepreneur. We need the investor. So it is important not to enter a negotiation with this perception that I don't have any power. Power comes from alternatives, so always focus on alternatives. But the thing is, negotiation primarily is a value creation exercise, which is based on the way in which we address our needs. Now, my next point is about the concept called the zone of possible agreement. What is a zone of possible agreement? Like we just did in the previous example, 13,500 was what my alternative was, and 22,500 was your budget. And most of the answers we had received were somewhere in between. That means the final deal will be in this, what is known as the zone of possible agreement. In most of the negotiations, when it is possible to have a deal, it is most likely that the deal will be somewhere in this zone. However, we generally don't know this. In a real life situation, for example, I would never tell you that I have somebody else who is offering me 13,500 and you will be thinking of your 22,500 all the time. Or you will not tell me that you have a budget of 22,500 and I will keep thinking, oh my God, if John doesn't buy from me, I will have to sell for 13,500. Maybe I should sell it to him because he is a more reliable person. So, in most of the negotiations, we focus only on our side of information. So, my next point is, why is it difficult to assess the zone of possible agreement? There are certain biases, cognitive biases, that do not allow us to explore information properly, or there are certain biases which create a wrong impression of the information that we have in front. So next few minutes, I will spend talking about those biases and how they are affecting our judgment. So every negotiator is a daredevil. Daredevil, it's a character from Marvel. It's a superhero. And what is so special about superhero Daredevil? Anyway, so special thing about this superhero is that, of course, he's a daredevil, but this is a blind superhero. So he's a person who is blind, but also superhero. And this is what every negotiator has to be. When you are representing your organization, when you are closing a deal on behalf of your organization, your boss, your superior, your colleague, they all expect you to close the best deal. So they all want you to be the superhero, but at the same time, we have lack of information. We do not know what is going on. We do not know what the other side really wants. So the thing is, we have to be a daredevil. We have to get the superhero results, but at the same time, we don't have enough information. So how can we be that daredevil? Okay, let's start with this. When is it easier to detect a deception in negotiation, only in the context of negotiation? When is it easier to detect a deception? When you are using email or when you are talking or negotiating face to face. When somebody is cheating, you figure out that, oh, this person is cheating when you are looking at them or when you are reading their email. Okay? Face to face, face to face, face to face, face to face. Overwhelmingly, everyone says face to face. Okay, some people have said, okay, somebody has said body language. Ibu Chibueze says email, but uh, most of the participants have said face to face. Okay, my question is why? Does anyone want to share their opinion? Why? Why, when you look at them, Amina says eye contact. So from eye contact, Amina, I think you can detect. Gabriel has raised hand. Gabriel, please go ahead. Tell us, when is it easy to detect a deceiver?
Face to face, because in a meeting where you are sitting with your opponent and he or she is having a discussion with you,
Yeah.
you tend to be able to understand more of what the person really means by not just speaking, but understanding how the person is saying it. In the sense that whoever is lying and you are discussing with the person one on one, you can detect that this person is lying compared
Okay.
to using email where you could just cover up your expression with text and other stuff like that.
Okay. So you look at some expressions and that tells you that, oh, this person is lying. Let's see, Adelodun has also raised hand. Adelodun, what is it that tells you this person is lying?
I believe. Good morning.
Okay.
It's easier to read people when you're with them you put space in negotiation. You
Okay.
can't. It's easy to deceive by text. You can send text and be deceitful, but when you put a face the person you're discussing with, I think it makes it easier for you to know when the person is doing it.
Okay, so you can send that's an interesting point. You send a text, and you can deceive. But when you are saying things which are not true, the other person can read very easily. Let's have one more, and then let's move on. Okoye has raised hand. Okoye, tell us, what tells you that this person is lying when you look at them?
Okay, good day everyone.
Hi.
One of the reasons I said face to face is because most of the time humans find it hard to mask their expressions in their
Okay.
face. So when you are negotiating with people, we are seeing those little expressions, those the eye contact, the
Okay.
gestures in their face and everything. So we
Okay.
can deduce from it what they actually have in their mind and the honesty level they come with it on to the
Okay.
negotiation table.
Okay, what are some other? So eye contact is one. So liars have bad eye contact. What other gestures tell you, oh, this person is lying? Maybe hand gestures or
Hand gestures, consistency with their words,
okay,
the nature, the way they repeat their words, even from the face to face, you can get the values this person is trying to get from the negotiation table, and also the body movement. A lot of things you can get from that.
very nice, very nice. So, so the thing is, somebody was mentioning fidgety. Yes, Taibat says they fidget a lot. So this is what this is. We all know this that when somebody is lying in or trying to deceive, they don't have a good eye contact. They avoid eye contact. Olushola says, or they are very fidgety. In fact, many studies have been done, and in fact, you are right that deceivers, people who deceive, they have a different body language. However, there is an interesting thing that we have to keep in mind. What studies in negotiations have shown is that yes, when people lie in a negotiation, they have different eye contact and they have different hand and leg movements, but they are not different the way we expect them to be. In fact, studies have shown that liars have a better eye contact. Liars have more control over their hand and leg gestures. They fidget less. And why? Because every liar knows that everybody else knows that liars have a bad eye contact. So when they are lying, they want to make sure that they don't come across as liars. That's why what happens is that often we depend on these gestures, but they misguide us. And that's why it is very important. Like somebody had said earlier, facts. So studies have shown, in fact, studies have shown that there is a greater possibility to detect a liar in face-to-face interaction. However, there are some important limitations, and important limitations are that there is a greater tendency to deceive over email. People are more likely to deceive you when they send you an email rather than when they are talking to you. Number one. Number two, face misleads. We are not, and number three, very important. In general, most of us, we are not very good at detecting deceivers. And somebody talked about, I think it was Dumebe who said intonation, and that is a very good point, very good insight. Studies have also shown that voice-related indicators are more reliable rather than face and body-related. So yes, in fact, that's why at times we even make this recommendation that when you are having lots of negotiations, try some part of your negotiation just audible, just using only a telephone without actually looking at the person, so that your focus is completely on their voice and not on other things. And as somebody said, facts. It is important to focus on consistency of data, consistency of answers, asking the same question differently to see if we are getting a similar response. That is more reliable rather than thinking, oh, this person is not looking at me, maybe they are lying. No. So it is important, that's why. So this is one of the biggest, this is one of the biggest limitations we have when we negotiate, because we rely too much on visual information and we often don't pay attention to content of what is being told us. So there is first blind spot. Second, and that's why in order to overcome this, it is important to select a channel of communication for negotiation that you are comfortable with. And what we recommend always is combine more channels than one. When you have long, complex negotiations, try to make sure that there is some part which is just done through emails so that you focus completely on information. And there is some part which is done face-to-face so that you can also establish a better personal rapport. Now, for the next blind spot, I have a challenge for you. Very quickly, you have to give the answer. Which one of the following is a bigger number? Are there more words in English that start with the letter K, like kilo, king, Kenya? Or there are more letters, more words that has letter K as the third letter, like awkward or doctor, if you don't know how to spell doctor? What is a bigger number? Are there more words that begin with K, or are there more words where K is third? Okay, we are getting answers. A. Okay, Guinea said B, Valentine says B, but Jessica says A, Blessing, Esther, the Oladpo has says A, Abigail says A as well, Taibat says B, but Michael, Joel, Okoye, Oyenken, Shiana, they all have said A. So an overwhelming majority, I think 90% of you have said A. Now what is the correct answer? The correct answer is, actually there are 3 times more words that have the letter K as the third letter. 3 times. But the moment I said words like kilo, king, kilometer, kerosene, or words like awkward, it was easier to remember words that start with K. And words like awkward did not come to our mind. But instead of awkward, if I had told you words like lake, where K is the third letter, immediately your mind would have taken you on a different journey, where you would have said, oh, lake, bake, take, make, rake, sake. There are so many. What is happening here? What is happening? Why we all think that there are more words that start with K? It is a mind game, as some of you have said. Yes, it is our mind conditioning. It is our mindset. This is also known as availability bias. We often assume that the information available, Jamila has rightly mentioned, it is psychology. We often assume that the information available is representative of the complete information, and we do not explore further. This assumption of completeness on whatever is available is availability bias. And that's why we often do not ask more questions. We do not explore. For example, we have students, like a few days ago, there was a student who said, I have this job offer, but I want to join late because I have never had a vacation in my life. And now I have a possibility of having a 1 month vacation. And company says join immediately after your graduation. What should I do? I think I will say, okay. I said, no, ask them, go and tell them, share with them your need, that I would love to have this. Is there a possibility? He went there, he talked, he said that he has never had, and the company understood that, look, you are very bright, so we wanted you to join immediately. But if you think that you want to take a little break and you deserve it, we don't mind. All it needed was asking. But often we do not ask because we think that whatever is available is all that is there. And that's a big mistake in a negotiation. Now, next one. Again, you will have to give an answer very quickly. You are a healthy eater, I know, all of you, and you want to buy some cheese. Which of the following will you choose? 98% fat-free or one with 2% fat? Which one? 98% fat-free, healthy, 2% fat. Which cheese will you go for? Let's see. Very quickly, we are having, okay, B. Okay, you have to choose. Make a choice, please. Make a choice. Abayomi says A. A. Okay, now many of you are saying, well, many of you have already figured out. And of course, I did not expect anything less from such an amazing group, that they are the same cheese, whether you say 98% fat-free or you say 2% fat, it's the same. We have asked, I mean, some other researchers, and I do this experiment quite often with undergraduate students, that choose one, and which one do you think always comes out as winner? Which one do you think people generally choose without any previous negotiation training or anything? Yes, exactly. Like Charles and Jamila said, most of the people, they go for A. Yes, Chidinma, you are absolutely right. Most of the people, they go for A. Why? Why do they go for A? What do you think? What's happening? Why do they go for A when, as many of you have figured out, it's the same? Charles says it's a bias, it's the mindset, because it is fat-free. Because it is fat-free. Now, in fact, we asked this question, which one will you go for, 98% fat-free or 1% fat? Now, you have figured out that, 1% fat is actually better cheese than 98% fat-free, but still, an unsuspecting crowd always goes for 98% fat-free. Why? Balagun says, yes, people love healthy because of the phrase fat-free. Because when I'm telling you that this cheese is this much fat-free, I'm giving you an incentive. This one gives you an incentive because I'm telling you what you want. And when I'm telling you this has fat, I'm giving you information. And that is the difference. When I'm telling you it is fat-free, I'm giving you an incentive and I'm giving you an invitation. Come join. This is fat-free, right for you. And when I'm saying this has fat, take it if you want, there is no invitation. So the thing is, the way in which the information is presented in a negotiation determines your response. Abimbola says here that yes, it is one of the marketing strategy. Yes, it is one of the marketing strategy. But this happens a lot in negotiations. It is not enough to know what the other side needs. It is important to know what the other side needs. But that need has to be incorporated in our conversation. We all have that friend who comes and says, you have to see this movie. You have to watch this show. You have to read this book. You will love it. And we know that last time when we watched a movie on their recommendation, we suffered for 2 hours. Or when we went out for dinner with a friend based on their recommendation, we suffered for 2 months. And still we go for that recommendation. Why? Because they say it is for you. I know you will love it. And we end up following that again and again. Because they always incorporate our needs, our perception, our emotions in what they are offering. So that's why it is very important that when we are negotiating, it is not enough. So the thing is, there is a very, IG was talking about Harvard just before the session started, and we have a colleague at Harvard, Arthur Brooks, who comes quite often to spend time with us here at ESA. He says something very interesting. He says that what happens is that most intelligent people, most smart individuals, they are very good at empathizing with others. Like, we very easily know what the other person wants. Okay, this is what they want, I know. But then we have to take the next step, and that is using that empathy and making and mixing it with compassion. That, okay, this is what you want. So I know that this is what you want, and that's why what I'm offering is going to help you. But it is the second step that we miss. That's why it is very important that we not only get to know the needs, but we incorporate it in the negotiation. At the same time, it is important when something is presented to us as very good for us, we have to see beyond the way in which it is presented, and we have to assess it properly. So, for example, another quick audience poll. A country is preparing for outbreak of an unusual disease that it expects will kill 600 people. Now, there are 2 programs. If program A is adopted, 200 people will be saved for sure. If program B is adopted, there is 1/3 probability that everyone is safe, 2/3 probability that no one is saved. So here they are not the same. I mean, 200 are saved for sure, that's it. But in the second one, there is 1/3 probability that we will save everyone, and 2/3 probability that nobody will be saved. So my question is, which program will you choose, A or B? Outbreak of an unusual disease, and you have to choose one of the 2. Which one will you choose? Let's see quickly. Jamila says B. Valentin says A. Esther says A. Uzoma says B. B. Okay, we have an interesting result. Okay, A and B. Guinea says A. Abdul Karim says A. Andrew A. Igori A. Ajibola says B. Ruth. Dizaram Judith. Okay, so we have kind of, Dumebi says B. Some of you have said that, well, as per the probability theory, they are the same. Okay, let me go to the next question. Look at the next question. I would like to have your opinion again. A country is preparing for outbreak of an unusual disease that it expects will kill 600 people. Which one will you go for? Program A, where you know that 400 people will die for sure, or program B, that there is 1/3 probability that nobody will die and 2/3 probability that 600 people will die. What will you do? Will you go for a program where 400 people will die for sure, or a program where there is 1/3 probability that nobody will die and 2/3 probability that everyone will? Okay, now I see B. Adesua, Victoria, Jessica, Nosa, Abigail says B. Guinea says A again. Gentle Soul says B. Kehinde, Ogubini, Abimbola, they all say B. Pete Wilson has said A. So now some of you who have received training in probabilities, theories of expectation, have mentioned that all these, they are in a way the same. Chidinma says that they are same, but I will choose A, and Kudirat says that it is difficult to choose. This question has been asked by Amos Tversky and Daniel Kahneman, the Nobel Prize winner, in many studies. What they have found, and well, what others have found consistently, is this: that when the information is presented in terms of how many lives are saved, most of the people, they choose A, like we saw. Like Abda Karim says, I will go for A. But when the information is presented as lives lost, most people go for B. When we present the same information, how many lives are saved, most people say 76. Okay, let's go for A. When we present the same information, how many lives are lost, people go for lives, the other option. Jamila, why do you think this happens?
So I actually wanted to add another facet to the situation.
Okay.
Now, for those going with A, there's a third level, and I can't remember where I saw it, where they tell you, okay, that some members of your family are going to be part of that 400 that will lose their lives for sure. Then the mind now flips to the other side, and everyone's like, okay, since there's a possibility of everyone being saved in the B scenario, I think it was like maybe 99% for B.
Yeah, I agree. But why do you think that happens? Like, what is your take on it?
Yeah, because this will now bring it down to I don't know, a personal bias. Because initially, when the situation is presented, you actually extricate yourself from it. And naturally, we will think that, oh, we will not be part of the people that will lose their lives if this thing happens. We will definitely not think on the negative side for ourselves. I mean, that's just what I'm thinking. Okay, and then the more the information is now being represented, then your mind starts to open more and more, and you see the different. I mean, you just see the different scenarios. Thank you.
So the thing is, thank you, Jamila. And Jamila has said an interesting thing. The way in which the information is presented, it creates different scenarios in your mind, even though the information is same. When I'm talking about this, when I'm saying that, look, this is the number of people that I'm saving, you want to go for this because you know that you are definitely going to achieve this much of positive result. On the other hand, when I present the information as terms of lives lost, you want to take a risk to avoid this definite loss. In other words, when the same information is presented as something positive, you want to go for something which is secure and safe and sure. When the same information is presented as an uncertainty, as a negative result, you want to embrace the uncertainty. You don't mind gambling. You don't mind taking risk because you want to avoid the definite loss. This is also known as loss aversion. This is loss aversion. That means when we want the other side to move in a negotiation, it is important that we present the negotiation, we present the potential outcome in the right manner. Instead of showing what is it that they are losing, if we can show that this is what they are gaining, we are likely to have a more positive response. But in order to show again, to show them what they are losing is what they are gaining, we need to know what they want to gain, what they want to achieve. So, coming back to this, I would say that the way in which the information is presented is affecting our result, and that is known as framing bias. And that is one of the most important steps in the negotiation process. That whenever you present an information, make sure that you frame it in the right manner. And you not only frame it in the right manner, you should frame it using the advantage or needs of the other side. We want to show the other side what is it that they are gaining, what is good for the other side. But for that, we need to already explore and get to know. So, make sure that when you negotiate, you analyze information properly and don't become a victim of framing bias. And at the same time, when you are presenting information, make sure that you use the right framing for your negotiation. Very quickly, let's move on to the next one. This is a very simple one. A person has been chosen at random from a set of 100 people consisting of 30 engineers, 70 lawyers. We have chosen an individual named Jack. He is 45-year-old, married, 4 kids, generally conservative, careful, ambitious, no interest in any political or social discussion, and spends time on many hobbies like carpentry, sailing, and solving mathematical puzzles. Jack is an engineer or a lawyer. Jack is an engineer or a lawyer. What do you think? Valentin says engineer, Chirinma says engineer, Jacob says engineer. Oluwabu Sayomi says a lawyer. Okay. Palangun says engineer, 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 engineer. Guinea says lawyer. So those who have said lawyer, can you write in the message why lawyer? Those who have said lawyer, can you tell us why do you think this person is a lawyer? Okay, so generally whenever this question is asked in any studies, again, we have many of our colleagues, many scholars before us, they have used, Giva says lawyers can't be fan of mathematical puzzles. Whenever this question has been asked in study, most people say that, look, these are characteristics that we identify with a lawyer, with an engineer, because, and Guinea says lawyers tend to think out of box, and that's why they are likely to solve mathematical puzzles, while somebody said lawyers, they don't enjoy mathematical puzzles. So the thing is, on the basis of our exposure, we set some theory. And that's how we come to conclusion that, okay, these are the characteristics: conservative, careful, ambitious. Conservative, careful, ambitious. I know this engineer who is conservative, careful, ambitious. I know this lawyer who is not conservative, careful, ambitious. Okay, must be engineer. Generally, whenever we have to come to conclusions, especially in the social setting, we use such theories. What we ignore is 2 things. Look at the numbers. There are 30 engineers and 70 lawyers. Mathematically, chances are much higher that Jack is a lawyer rather than an engineer. But again, instead of looking at mathematical information, we pay attention to the other type of information, the qualitative information. And in either case, we might be wrong, because still, having more lawyers doesn't mean that the person who we have selected is a lawyer. So what we need to know is whether we are very good at setting such theories or not. So for that, we have to keep in mind one thing. Number one, we often have an affiliation bias. We affiliate people with their profession, with their families, with their nationalities. Oh, this person is from this country. I don't know. Oh, this person is from this country. Oh, they are all, so I respect them a lot. This person is from this city. I don't know. I don't trust people from that city. Oh, this person is from, if this person is an accountant, I don't like accountants. This person is a doctor. Oh, must be very intelligent. This person is a professional athlete. Oh, must be, a very nice, very disciplined person. We never know. So we always have such affiliation biases. And this affects negotiators a lot, especially when we negotiate in international context. Like most of you negotiate, with people from other countries, people from other continents, people from other cities. And often we have to make sure that the other person does not have such an affiliation bias about us. At the same time, we have to keep in mind that we don't have such an affiliation bias about them either. And I would like to show you one more piece of information. This was a study done in 80s, I think around in the year 88, when the historic Reykjavik Agreement took place between United States and USSR back then, which now is, has been divided into 15 countries, including Russia. So there was President Ronald Reagan and Soviet Premier Mikhail Gorbachev. They met in Reykjavik in Iceland, and a proposal was made. Now, Group A knew that the proposal had actually come from Gorbachev. So Soviet Premier had made the proposal. Group B was told that the proposal was made by President Reagan. Now, these people, they were all students of Kennedy School of Public Administration at Harvard University. All of them very bright students in the same class. Half the class thought this is a Soviet, a Russian proposal. Other half thought this is an American proposal. And then they were asked, who will benefit? Look at the results. Those who thought, Group B, those who thought that this was from America, 56% thought that it was going to favor United States. But in Group A, 46% thought that it was neutral. It was the same proposal, but still, just by changing who made the proposal, they had a different perception. So, these are some of the blind spots in negotiations. Availability heuristics, that means information that is available, we think it is complete. Representative bias, we think that, oh, this is a complete set of information like we did in case of engineer and lawyer. Affiliation bias, we affiliate people. We have biases because of their gender, their race, their ethnicity, their nationality. And last but not the least, framing bias. The way in which information is presented determines the kind of perception we have. Who presents the information has a strong impact on our perception. And they don't allow us to establish a relationship of trust with other people. So how do we overcome biases? So these are some steps that I would recommend. Step number one, preparation. Always, like in any sports, any athlete, you don't prepare to win. You prepare to play better than your counterpart. That's how you win. So in any negotiation, set goals. And don't just set goals of this is what I want to achieve, but set learning goals. That I want to make a better offer. I want to control my emotions better. I want to ask more questions. Like in sports, you don't say, let's prepare to score one goal. No, for that, let's prepare to run better. Let's prepare to dribble better. Let's prepare to have better control. So always set learning goals when you prepare. Studies have shown that they are people who have these goals, they are likely to reach more cooperative agreements. Ask and listen. Ask the other side, always in negotiation, what are they really looking for, and then use it for your arguments. And most importantly, Frame your negotiation using the other side's advantage. Show the value you are creating for the other side. Show what is it that the other side is gaining by doing business with us. How can we help them so that they can help us? Last but not the least, always have, number one, feedback, but more importantly, analogical feedback. What does that mean? Analogical feedback means do one negotiation, maintain a diary, write down what is it that you could have done better. Next negotiation, again, write down what you could have done better. Next negotiation again, and see what pattern is emerging. Are there some common mistakes? Are there some common emotions? Are there some common good things that you are doing? Because that will tell you what is it that you do well and where you can improve. And last but not the least, this is the preparation framework that you should always follow in every negotiation. Before you negotiate, try to write down what you need, what alternatives you have, what is it that you want to get, what kind of a relationship you want to achieve, and how much information you have. And then try to see how much about the counterpart you know. And what you don't know, ask to decide what their expectation might be. And that is the way to be a daredevil negotiator. So with that, I will stop. My friend Tara has been telling me that you have 1 minute left, 50 seconds, 30 seconds. So I hope I still have a few minutes, but please go
Yeah.
ahead with your schedule.
Thank
And I am
you.
honored and very grateful for this opportunity to IG, to Jamila, to Evo, and to everyone. And I hope we keep in touch. And if I can be of any help, it would be a pleasure for me. Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, thank you, thank you so much, Prof. My mind has been blown, and I can see from the chats that it's been really, really phenomenal. Everyone has enjoyed themselves. They've been sending thank you. Please don't only send thank you, send reactions, claps, loves, thumbs ups, as much as possible. It's been really, really wonderful. I was wondering if any one of you had any questions. We could take maybe one or two questions.
Sure.
If you don't have, then we can take we can collate the questions from you and then send to Prof. And when he responds, we can share with you, because we have a platform where we have all of these, where we have our participants. But it's been really, really engaging, really, really interesting, really. So I don't know. IG, go ahead, please. I'm short of words. I'm short of words. I have learned so much.
I learned negotiation from one of the very best.
Me too, remember.
And we always think that we know it all until we have the next session.
I tell you.
I mean, I have been spellbound, held spellbound.
Yes.
Last 1.5 hours. There's always something to learn. I was boasting to Prof before the session started how we made money from what we learned from Deepak.
I heard you.
Hear this. I mean,
no.
I think we're very privileged. I think we're so privileged to have you. And we can't thank you enough. We can't thank you enough.
So,
yes.
it's my honor, and in fact, colleagues like Deepak have, we are just following the trail blazed by, those scholars, and we are trying to, move up by following them. And one last thing, Giva had asked this question: what is negotiation in the simplest definition?
Yes. Yeah.
So, after this entire conversation, what we can say is that negotiation is a skill that we use to create value, to resolve conflicts for ourselves and for others as well. Because we have to remember that as long as we can help each other, we can negotiate. And I think with this session and with this wonderful conversation, I think it will give us this. Can you rephrase? So I would repeat, negotiation is a skill that we use to resolve conflicts, to create value for ourselves and for others. And that's why it is important, as Tosin says, create value and help each other is what we want to do. And I want to once again thank you all for this wonderful opportunity. And well, let's keep in touch. And well, your representative is here, so you are all part of our family.
Yeah. Yes.
So take care and have a wonderful rest of the day. Thank you.
We'll be back.
So thank
We're
you so
going to come back for more, Prof.
Yes,
sure,
please.
definitely.
Thank
It
you.
would be
Thank
an
you
honor.
so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Prof.
Thank you.
And I encourage everyone in the audience to please look for Prof on LinkedIn and follow him. I don't think I need to say more, because there's just a whole wealth of knowledge that you can get from him. Please look for him on LinkedIn, follow him. He made himself available to all of us. He said, if you have any questions, let's keep the conversations going. So reach out to him, just let him know that you were part of the Kfsd 6th edition soft skills training member, and he would definitely give you an audience. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah. So for all the for our participants, please, we're going to drop a feedback form, and would like you to please sign that and fill that feedback form. It's just 2 minutes, 2 minutes of your time. Tech, please, can you drop that feedback form so we can have the feedback for Prof before our next speaker comes on? Thank you. Thank you. I'm looking at the chat section. It's just okay. I'll get the LinkedIn handle and drop it here, please. I'll get the LinkedIn handle and drop it here. Sandra, please, can someone help from the back end there? The LinkedIn handle for Prof, please. Wow. The presentation slides, we're going to have to speak to him about that. I'm not sure if we can get it, but if we can, and I doubt if, some of the slides, you can only really relate with it if you were part of the presentation. So I don't know if he'll share with us, but I will definitely make the YouTube link available to everyone. Back end, please, can we have the feedback polls? Oh, thank you. Oh, yes. And then is Prof still available? I don't know. Okay, so we have his LinkedIn link there. His LinkedIn profile is there, so you can copy it and please join, add him. Yes. Okay. Thank you very much. And I think we're ready for the next session. But before that, please, just for a second, can we just take a group photo? Can we take a group photo? I think, is Prof still here? No. Okay, let's just take a group photo mid-session, and then we'll take another one at the end of the session, at the end of the second session. So please put on your videos and let's see your best smiles. Noah, please do your thing. We have 30 seconds. Thank you. And in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Our next speaker is here. Our next speaker, Mr. Sojia Pampa. I don't think that for the returning participants, I need to introduce him. Mr. Soji needs no introduction because he's someone that has been with us over and over again. And every time we need him for this program, he's always there for us. Mr. Soji has been teaching us about integrity. We know how important integrity is in our business dealings, in our general life dealings. Integrity is definitely a skill that we all need, that we all should have actually in our dealings, whether we're students, whether we're graduates, whether we're entrepreneurs, whatever it is that we're doing, we need to be able to do anything that we're doing with integrity. I would allow Mrs. Soji Apampa to please come in. Mrs. Soji, please, can you confirm you're here? I think I can see you, but I'm not seeing your video. Mr. Soji, are you in, please?
We're working with Mr. Soji to join the meeting. I think he's experiencing some sort of technical challenge.
Thank you. Thank you for that feedback, Sandra. Thank you. Okay, I think he's in. Actually, let me just check one more time. Okay, while we're doing that, while we're working at the back end for Mrs. Soji, can anyone tell me the biggest thing that you learned during Professor Mehta's presentation? I'll go to the chat section now and read the responses. Can I get what the biggest, you can't forget the story of the bullfrog syndrome. Yes, that's with Mr. Soji's presentation. Please, where will the PDF and audio be sent? This class was so inspiring. We have a Telegram group, and then we have other groups that will be explained tomorrow after the last session. So please be sure, if you're not part of that group, be sure to please join the group tomorrow, join the session tomorrow, and you will get all the links to our groups where we have our participants. You learned power comes from alternatives in negotiation. I tell you, some of these things we know them, but we just don't, we are unable to put them in context. I also learned that today. IG has raised the hand. IG, please, can we hear from you?
So Jamila, I want you to remember when we're negotiating with Marubeni.
Yes.
When we're fresh from Harvard Business School.
Yes.
And they were threatening us. Don't you know who we are? We're one of the biggest conglomerates in the world. What did we do? We deployed, I kept telling you, Jamila, I said, Jamila, they have no other contractor to work for them.
Yeah.
Even though we're small, we knew that nobody else was going to do that job. So what did we do? We held on to our position. At the end of the day, we were successful, despite the fact that we're a very small company. All right? So we've been in these negotiations many times where we seem to be negotiating with a very big company, powerful company.
Yeah.
But because we use these templates, we're able to have good outcomes. So negotiation is about the other part, focus on the other party. Jamila, I always remind you, focus on what? They are Batna, not your own position.
Yes, yes.
What is the alternative if we don't do this job?
Yes.
Don't worry. If you worry about yourself, you keep reducing your price. And in an auction, what happens? They are the winners.
Yeah.
Okay? So you must always focus on their partner, not on your own.
Yes.
Right?
I hope you're all listening. This is also another free class from Engineer Igbo and Otaisabo. I tell you, negotiation is just such an interesting concept. Such an interesting concept. So I'm
never afraid, Jamila. Yes. Negotiating with anybody, I'm never afraid. What do? Prepare. We sit down, we have meetings in the office and take the different alternatives. If they do this, what do we do? Like a chess game. If they do this, what do we do? If they do this, what do we do? We prepare and we go into the meeting with different alternatives. And that way, we are getting better. I think Jamila is out. Sandra, am I correct? Jamila has dropped off. Sandra, can you hear me?
Yes, sir. I can still see her here.
I can't see her anymore. So what's happening with Mr. Soji?
So the Zoom platform keeps logging him off.
Okay, that's another powerful session I'm looking forward to.
Yes, we're trying as much as possible to get him in so that we don't miss out.
I know it's going to be really fun. So Let's see your comments in the chat section. Let's talk about this negotiation class. It looks like it never comes to an end. There's always so much to learn. I learned so much today, despite the fact that I was bragging that I knew so much about negotiation. But I learned so much today. Let me know what your views are. In the chat section, let me know what your views are. So, something about negotiation, you ask a question. How do I know the other person's weaknesses? How do I know what they want? What's their objective? So what do? You ask questions and do more of listening. And sometimes you ask indirect questions to get the answer of what you need. Because if you don't ask them, so what's your objective? They won't answer you. But you have to be able to extrapolate and know what they need. To be able to know how to give them what they need. And in negotiation, you don't give out anything for free. So you know they want something, don't just give it to them. Okay, say, look, I will give this to you, but in return, I want this. So negotiation is about value creation, about enlarging the pie. Don't make it a zero-sum game. A zero-sum game is, okay, it's 10 naira. If I take 7, you take 3. No. Can we enlarge that pie to 15 so that I can take 10 and you take 5? So those are lessons in negotiation. All right? Enlarge the pie. Create value for everybody. It's not that you must take from the other person to make up your own, not necessarily. You can actually make it bigger and everybody has more. So those are some of the tips in negotiation. For me, it was mind-blowing and I don't get tired of it, okay? So learn to create value. Don't be afraid going into any negotiation, no matter how big the other party is. Don't be afraid. Stay focused. So now I heard that there's nothing like win-win in negotiation. You're not coming to a negotiation to make the other person win. You are coming to the negotiation to create value for yourself. All right? And in the process, if you have to create value for them to create for yourself, that's fine. But really, you are there for yourself. All right? So like we say, we negotiate with our spouses, with our children. You heard him talking about ice cream. You negotiate with your children. Negotiate with your friends, family, employers. All the time, employees. It's all about negotiation. If you don't ask, you don't get. What you thought was impossible, you might be able to get it just by asking. Sorry, we're trying to get the next speaker in, please. Let's try. We're trying to focus on that. Just give us a minute. All right, Soji, over to you. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Can we unmute Soji, please? Can we unmute Mr. Pampa? Tech, please. Okay, Soji, try and unmute. Okay, good.
Yes, Thank
you. Welcome. Good to have you.
Wow. Yes, this has been quite a journey. Please, will I be able to share my screen? Can I just go ahead and do so, please? Yeah. Can we see my screen?
It's coming up. It's coming up. It says you started sharing. Yes, coming up. Yes, sir, we can.
Okay, so in the end, I'm connecting via phone. I hope this will not cause me even more problems during the presentation, but I'm glad to be here. Good morning, distinguished participants. We're discussing professional ethics and
hello, Soji. Soji, please, can you put off your video? Soji, put off your video. Your bandwidth is low.
It would have been terrible for me not to join the call at 11:30, but I see you at 11 o'clock. So please bear with me. Would like to do. Can we all hear me, please?
Yes, we can hear you, sir.
Thank you very much. So I'll continue. We want to explore our context. We want to look at the rationale for ethics. Why should we bother with ethics? Then we want to identify what professional are, and then discuss integrity and morals, look at conflicts of interest and ethical dilemmas, and then we end there to have a question and answer session. Okay. To drive our professional ethics, morals, given our, and what is peculiar about is that we've got some barriers, some things that I'm really sorry I'm having to use telephones because somehow our regular office network is not connecting to the Zoom for some reason. So I really apologize for that. Let me try once more now with another another source. So like I said, how we win and retain business does not receive sufficient attention for it to warrant change. Not enough buyers of our goods and services require integrity as a condition for the engagement. And acting with integrity is often seen by people as moral, but impractical, nice to have, given the environment. I know I'm describing the environment in Nigeria, but I'm thinking hard. It's very difficult to find other African countries that I can say are totally free from some of these barriers. So what people are looking for is something from outside the environment that would warrant their attention. Maybe somebody from outside saying, I will give you this advantage if you will do the right thing. Or if they're able to find potential clients who require integrity as a condition for engagement, because people are always afraid that if they unilaterally do the right thing, it would put them at a competitive disadvantage to the rest of their competitors. And also, we would have to be able to see prospects who would want to pay for integrity and maybe pay a premium for integrity and cover the costs of compliance and things like that. So this is part of what makes it very difficult for people in our context to easily consider on their own acting and living according to the principles of integrity. So what should motivate people to do the right thing? Why would people do the right thing? If we take Kohlberg's cognitive moral development theory, he gives us 6 reasons why people would do the right thing. Number 1 is to avoid punishment. Number 2 is to take advantage of rewards. Some of us, if there are rewards available, then to take advantage of it, we will do the right thing. Or to impress our circle of friends, to be seen as law-abiding, for the common good of the majority, or to ensure justice for all. But you would agree with me that the strongest is to avoid punishment. followed by taking advantage of rewards, and then impressing our circle of friends, and so on and so forth. So it's the scarce few who will do it because that is the just thing to do. But think about it. It means that we are working in a context where our institutions are weak. There's weak enforcement to get people to do the right thing. And there are negative incentives, meaning people who do the wrong things are not necessarily punished. People who do the wrong things are not necessarily precluded from accessing rewards. People who do the wrong things are not excluded from their circle of friends. People who do the wrong things are not necessarily charged with breaking any law in many parts of Africa. So in the end, there seems to be very little to push us to do the right thing. Let's consider something more individual then. So we've looked at what is happening competitively. We've looked at what is happening in our society. But what about at the level of the individual? What do these things, what kind of impact do they then make on the individual? What leads individuals to deviant acts such as corruption and so on, and conflicts? It is usually when the goals that are strongly emphasized by society do not quite line up with the means that society then emphasizes. For instance, our parents may tell us that the way to get on in life is to go to school, get an education, graduate, get into the job market, and so on. But many of us see people who are getting on who did not bother with education, and people who actually do no work at all, who are now wealthy in society. And we see that society seems to support those kinds of people. So wealth without work then becomes a goal strongly emphasized by society. And therefore, the means that society emphasizes, such as going to school, getting an education, is not the means that will get you to that goal. And when individuals are confronted with that kind of dissonance, where the goals don't line up with the means they're supposed to take, then deviance often occurs. Deviance. So how well does society manage the expectations of individuals in the face of rapid social change? So Merton came up with this theory where he says, well, some people will simply conform. They would accept the goals. They would accept the means that, yes, okay, I need to get on in life. That's what society says. And the prescribed means are for me to go to school. Therefore, I will go to school. We have some who become innovative instead. They say, yes, I accept that I have to do well in life, but I don't accept the means that you have given me. I'm going to invent or innovate around the means that I will apply. Some who say, who wants to be rich anyway? I don't really care about being rich. I just want to do the right thing. So they will keep the means. They will go to school, come out of school, and just live their lives in a sort of ritual and just do what society expects of them. Whatever comes out of it is okay. There are some who can't cope with what is going on, and they abandon both the goals and the means, and they try to opt out of society. So some of them turn to drugs, alcoholism, they become vagrants. Some even become mentally ill, and they struggle to function. So they just retreat from society entirely. But we have those who turn to rebellion, who says, who cares about the goals of society or the means of society? We are going to design our own. And many of them resort to violence. Many of them decide they will join a movement to overthrow the current order. So individual responses to the challenges in our environment brings a level of complication to the competitive disadvantage that many people already read into doing the right thing. Also brings a level of complication to what people see in terms of society already incentivizing the wrong behaviors, not the right behaviors. And then all of this creates a situation where individuals have to choose. Do I conform? Do I innovate? Do I just go through the drudgery and whatever comes out of it, comes out of it? Do I escape from society because the pressure is too much for me to bear? Or do I rebel completely? And we find all these 5 different adaptations in any group in society, even amongst professionals. So it is very few professionals that you will find who are principled. You will find some who are moralists, who will sit down, criticize everything that is going on, but will not join any effort to repair things. You will find some who believe that they are victims of circumstance, and therefore they are just survivors, trying to survive. So don't judge me, I have to do whatever it takes to survive. Then you find some who are opportunists, who believe that, hey, bring it on. Whatever we can find, whatever gaps there are in the system, we take advantage of it, we benefit from it. And then you have, of course, the rebellious. You will always find them in any group in society, including amongst professionals. So, what is it about our societies in Africa that make it so difficult for us to choose the path of ethical conduct? So O'Toole did some work many years ago, dividing societies around the globe along 4 different continua. Number 1, you've got the libertarian states, where in those states, it's free for all. It's more like a survival of the fittest when it comes to business. In those states, they believe that the strong should be allowed to get stronger. The rich should be allowed to get richer. Well, the poor, if you can't cope, well, you just have to pull your socks up. Then you've got on the other end, egalitarian societies where they say, no, the purpose of society is to equalize between different groups. So men should not progress at the expense of women. The older generation should not progress at the expense of the younger ones. That just because you are poor doesn't mean you should not be able to progress in life the same way that a rich person can progress. So they use the power of the state to try and equalize between different groups in society, so there is a common platform for development. Then you have what we see in many Scandinavian countries where it is communitarian. They think of the whole community and they tend to act to protect the community as a whole. And they also believe in generational justice. So a country like Norway, even though they've got oil, they do not use up their oil resources willy-nilly. In fact, they save up a lot of their revenues for the benefit of future generations, because they believe that the future generations have a right to access the same resources as they are accessing today. But on the other end of the spectrum, we have corporatist societies. And in these societies, the direction of state policy depends on the configuration of business, politicians, labor, religious authorities, traditional rulers, and so on, who manage to seize control of the state. They are the ones who then are able to decide which way things go. So very often in a corporatist state, the group that manages to seize control of the state will hold the cow of state steady while their group milks it for all they can get. And the rest of them try and keep other groups away while they're doing that. Sadly, this is the case in many African countries. And this is part of why dealing with ethics and integrity is such a challenge within this context. So question is, where will you place your own state today? I would say Nigeria is around where that red dot is. But where I think the US under Obama pulled towards an egalitarian society and is trying that again now. But under Trump, they pulled in the direction of a libertarian state. And you will see also that what was permitted in their society also changed between those administrations as well. Okay, so let us move on. Now, the question you're probably asking yourself is, why then should we bother with ethics and integrity if those who are doing the wrong thing seem to be able to get away with it at the moment? If even our customers are not necessarily asking to use suppliers who do the right thing. In fact, in many cases, in many countries, clients are looking for accountants who know them in the tax office so they can reduce their liability. They're looking for lawyers who know the judge so that somehow they can help them skew the case in their favor. So why should we bother? Number one, because in our societies, this is the picture. Some have food and some don't have food. This picture to my left is not from the internet. I took this photograph in a state in northern Nigeria myself. This is the kind of life many people still live in Nigeria. Meanwhile, in other parts of Nigeria, the picture to my right is how they feed. We have agriculture without food. What do you think has led us to a situation where the food imports into many African countries has been growing year after year? What about the issue of shelter? These are slums in Lagos. And you will find to the right, these kind of dining rooms in many houses in Abuja and in Lagos and other parts of Nigeria. I wonder if you have such extremes in your countries as well. We have a serious housing gap in Nigeria, as I know also occurs in many other countries around the world. What about clothing without warmth? Some are very well decked out, but many more do not have the clothing they need. The Nigerian textile industry, for instance, has been destroyed, and it was destroyed by smuggling and allowing cheap imports to come in from other countries while the officials collected bribes, acted unethically, and looked the other way till that industry was destroyed. What about schooling without learning? The picture to your left is a picture of a school within the Federal Capital Territory in Nigeria. And contrast that with children who have not only the space to learn, they also have the tools, they have the opportunities as well. What do you think leads to a situation where about 1/5 of the world's 60 million out of school children are in Nigeria alone? Of course, it's not Nigeria alone. We know there are in India, there are in other countries and in other African countries. But what do you think has led to this situation where officials are not insisting that children are in school? And when the children are in school, they are unable to provide for them, even though we budget for these things year after year. Why do you think that situation is? We have medicine without healing. Our leaders go to hospitals in Germany, like the one on the right, but their people are thronged, pressing each other, looking for free medical care when people come on medical missions to their villages and their towns. It's estimated that no more than 35% of Nigerians have access to modern healthcare services. What about growing without maturing? 40% of the body's dry matter is protein. Intake of animal protein is at present about 4.8 grams per head per day, as against a recommended 35 grams. And it is a measure of acute poverty not to have access to proteins as well. What about democracy without choice? Right now, Nigeria is preparing for another round at the polls, and people are wondering at the manner of candidates that we have to choose from and saying, do we really have a choice? Is this really a choice? So is Nigeria ruled by an elite aristocracy who control the power because they are the elites, they have the money, they have the resources, nobody else can break in? And it's almost hereditary for them now? Or do we have a popular democracy? All of that is still open for debate. We have governance, yes, but we don't have peace. We're having insurgencies around the country. We have revenues coming in, but no justice. If you look at the lives that are being led by the people where the oil is coming from, as opposed to the people who are the ones doing the extracting, you will see there's a big difference. And I want to put it to us this morning that the reason why our countries are so broken and we do not have the kind of development we're seeking is because we allow inefficiency and corruption. Those two things. And what brings about both inefficiency and corruption is a lack of professional ethics. So except we pay attention to the subject of ethics, we will not be able to repair our countries and get the kinds of futures that we would really desire for ourselves. Okay. Let us now move on to the subject of professional ethics itself. I know many people have been writing in the chat room, and I hope I've been receiving assistance in responding to the chats. But now I want to ask us, who can define for us professional ethics? What is professional ethics? Can we type in there, in the chat, what is professional ethics, please? Yes, rules that guide professional conduct. Yes, guidelines for carrying out professional activities. set of values that underpin professional, okay, conduct expected of employees in the workplace. Let me be naughty and say that if it is the code of conduct that are expected of employees in the workplace, what if my workplace was set up to actually defraud people? And I have a code of conduct for them. Will it not still be a code of professional ethics? So some people are saying, doing the work that you have been paid for. Even sometimes assassins and thieves are paid to do the work that they do. So just because there are standards involved, there is a way, a manner in which the work should be done, does that make it ethical? Okay. Let me give you my definition. A system of moral principles. It's important to put the word moral into the definition. A system of moral principles, the rules of conduct that guide your actions. So the moral principles, the moral rules of conduct that guide your actions. So ethics guide you with respect to what actions are right or wrong, and with respect to what is good and what is bad in the motive behind the actions that you are taking. So do you see further problems even with this definition of ethics? Basharun Akintunde Atinuke says, professional ethics, the obligations and responsibilities that arise out of a particular kind of service performed for individuals or groups. Well, that is very, very general. I would like you to always include the phrase moral principles, because if they are not moral, they cannot be ethical. Okay, so now let's look at the whole issue of morals. Good and bad. Do we universally agree on what is good and what is bad? Do we as human beings universally agree as to what is moral and what is immoral? Some things may be perceived as good in Nigeria, but will they always be perceived as good everywhere? What do you think? So before we go into that discussion, I hope with everything I've said so far, you're getting the picture that professional or personal ethics, whatever level of ethics you are exhibiting, is not something you do automatically. It is something you have to think about, something you have to be deliberate about. It is not easy. It's something you have to choose to do. It's not something that just naturally occurs. Now, applying ethics in an organization, so applying it to yourself as an individual is challenging. Then applying it within an organization that includes many individuals who come from many backgrounds can be even more difficult. So let's now take it to the area of business ethics. It's similar to professional ethics. It is the rules of conduct that guide your actions in a business environment. It guides you with respect to what business actions are right or wrong with respect to the goodness or badness of your motives. It's still a system of moral business principles. The fundamental principle of business ethics is fair and honest business dealings. Of course, you will ask again, what is fair? How do I define what is fair? How do I define what is good or bad? What is right or wrong? We can relate the same thing to to public sector ethics, but I'm not going to bother with that. It's the same sort of definition as we have looked at before. But now I want to ask you the question that I think some people have already raised in the chat. Are ethics absolute or are they relative? Are ethics absolute or are they relative? Osai says they're relative. Olabode says it's relative. But Bank says it's absolute. Okay. Richard Egbo says it should be absolute. Okay. Before we get into that debate, therefore, let me give you a story or two stories, two short stories. The story was told of a minister in a Scandinavian country, a lady who had gone to buy her groceries and got there, found out she had taken the wrong credit card. The credit card that was with her was the one that was issued by the government. She paid for her groceries with it, got back to her office, issued the check, and paid back the money immediately. She was fired. If this was a minister in your country that had acted in that way, used the government-issued credit card when they saw that they had forgotten their own, but paid it back immediately, do you think it would have created a problem for them? In fact, if you're from Nigeria, tell us, would such a minister have been fired? Okay, so most people agree that that kind of person will not be fired. Now, why do you think this person was fired? The reason that was given was abuse of public funds. These funds are not yours. Those monies belong to the people. You cannot borrow the people's money to do anything that has not gone through proper authorization. Therefore, she was fired. You can say that, okay, that can happen in a Scandinavian country. You know that is, people abroad, even on the Transparency Corruption Perception Index, Scandinavian countries are some of the cleanest. At least they are perceived to be some of the cleanest. So we can excuse them. Let me give you a second story. The second story is the story of an African country where a particular vendor, someone who sells goods and services to the government, gave free SUVs to the lawmakers, some lawmakers, gave free SUVs to them. But in their case, they actually, it wasn't totally free. It was seen as free only because they paid a price that was lower. It was at a discount lower than ordinary people in society would have access to. They were prosecuted and jailed in this African country. The African country in question is South Africa, and it was during the second term of Thabo Mbeki that some lawmakers went to jail in South Africa for receiving these gifts, and it was termed an abuse of office. In a place like Nigeria, even if each lawmaker in the whole country was given a free vehicle branded by the vendor, do we think that anybody would be able to fire or get those lawmakers arrested? Okay, so we all believe that no, it will not happen here. Then let me paint the scenario. You now have international people come to do business in a place like Nigeria. And a so-called big man arranges for them to be met at the door of the plane, for them to be brought out of the airport to a waiting limo without their passports being stamped in their presence, whisks them off, has the meetings with them, returns them to the airport, but then is now wondering why those people don't want to do business with him. After all, he has shown them how powerful he is in Nigeria. Can you see that there is a problem with the ethical values of someone from a Scandinavian country coming to do business here? Their expectation will be very different to the expectation of the businessman here. Even from South Africa, the expectation will be very different. Therefore, the ethics, the moral standards that we have set for ourselves here in Nigeria may be too low. So I agree with you that the ethics are not absolute, but they are relative, because people set standards that they hope to achieve. You will not set yourself a standard that is impossible for you. So if you are operating in an environment that is severely constrained by a lack of resources and so on, you will set your standards for you to meet them, taking into account the resources you have available to you. So I put it to you that you will set lower standards for yourself than somebody from Scandinavia will, or somebody from South Africa might. So you can see the problem. What if they were all doctors? Can you keep that tag of doctor and you have a different way of operating in Scandinavia, a different way of operating in South Africa, and a different way of operating in Nigeria? Who would like to meet that doctor that says, I have these constraints, so therefore I will not treat you up to standard? You should run away from such a doctor. So how then do we have some kind of absolute ethical guidelines in professions? It is because professions come together from time to time and set what they call minimum acceptable standards of behavior. They never set the maximum. They always set the minimum acceptable. So in the old dark ages, if a person had a gangrenous foot, it would be sawn off with the same kind of saw that a carpenter would use to saw a log of wood. And there was no anesthesia in those days. They would probably give him a very stiff drink, some alcohol to numb his senses if it could, but they will saw off that foot without anesthetics. Can you do so today? In today's world, the standards have moved on. Therefore, the minimum acceptable has also moved on. Whoever tried such a thing today will be a quack and will be locked up for doing such a thing. So what am I trying to say? That ethics, yes, may be relative. We may not be able to get to the absolute because there's no such thing quite as the absolute. There will always be someone who has more resources or a better incentive to do an even higher standard. So what people try to set is a minimum acceptable standard to be associated with a profession. So if you cannot meet the minimum standard for a lawyer, then maybe you will be called a paralegal, but not a lawyer. If you cannot meet the minimum standard for a doctor, you'll probably be called a paramedic, not a doctor. So there would always be one standard for doctors anywhere in the world, and it will be the minimum acceptable standards which are acceptable for the particular time in which you are operating. So it's important for us to think about it, because many of us feel that because we have constraints and because our societies are challenged, therefore there is no justification for behaving to a minimum acceptable standard. Recall, I'm not telling you to aim for the very highest standard, which is possible maybe in Scandinavia or in the US or in South Africa. I'm talking about the minimum acceptable standard for your profession. So, is it professional for a lawyer to attempt to bribe a judge? That is never professional anywhere in the world. It goes against the minimum standard of any profession or the legal profession. Therefore, even in a place like Nigeria, it would be unacceptable. Is it okay for you as a consulting engineer who's supposed to be supervising a contractor on behalf of a client to see that shoddy materials are being used and instead take a cut only for the whole building to collapse down the line? Is that ever ethical? Can you ever justify that because things are difficult in your country, it then makes it okay for you to fall below the minimum acceptable standard of behavior, which is that a consulting engineer will not compromise their practice? Or you as a contractor will not fall below a certain level. I hope you are following my argument this afternoon. So I want you to understand that the set of morals, standards, rules, laws, principles, and so on, that actually, in actual fact, control your choices and behavior in business are your ethics in business. So if your actual behavior or choices are consistently bad, your ethics must be bad. If your behavior and choices in business are consistently acceptable or good, then they must be coming from a place of good ethics. We've already dealt with this, that they're not absolutes. Our ethics are not absolutes. They're not universal. They're relative, but we can have a minimum acceptable standard that we will be guided by. So let's look at this. In our countries, do you think that the citizens are good apples or bad apples? Can you type in the chat? Because they tell us that, you know, if you put good apples together with bad apples, then the bad apples will corrupt the good apples. So in your country, are the citizens good apples, predominantly good apples, or bad apples? My timekeeper tells me I have 20 minutes left. So I will take note of that. So if you put good apples together with bad apples, we know that the bad apples will spoil the good apples. If you put good apples in a good barrel, then they will be preserved. If you put good apples in a bad barrel, they will be destroyed. So you need to have predominantly good apples in your country, in citizens, and your country itself needs to be a good barrel. Also, you may have heard of the boiled frog syndrome, which states that if you put a frog in a beaker of water and heat it up slowly, ever so slowly, because reptiles adapt and take on the temperature of their surroundings, the frog will adapt and will continue to adapt. And the theory goes that in the end, by the time the water gets very hot, the frog will already be too weak and it will allow itself to be boiled alive. The boiled frog syndrome. And that many of us, even though we know that there are bad eggs around us and that bad eggs will corrupt all of us, we do nothing. Instead, we adjust. We find another way to avoid the bad eggs. We just adjust and adjust until we become boiled frogs. Sometimes it is our countries that are the bad barrel. We ourselves are good apples. And instead of doing something to fix what is wrong, we adjust. We find another way to adapt, and we keep adapting till we allow ourselves to be boiled alive. So we need to be able to make ethical choices. And let's go to make an ethical choice. You need to decide that, number one, is it compliant with law? Will I be breaking any rules or regulations? Is it against the policy of my organization or company? Second, is it the responsible thing to do? How will it affect other parties? What if everybody were doing the same thing? Is it against my principles? Is it generally acceptable? How will it look on the newspaper front page, on YouTube, on Facebook, on social media? Will I be ashamed to tell others or to have it broadcasted? What will my family think if I tell them? Okay. So think about it. If what you are about to do fails on any one of these issues, then it is not likely to be an ethical decision that you're taking. But if it passes on all of these issues, then it is more than likely that it's an ethical choice that you are making. If you don't remember anything else from what I tell you today, remember this, because this will help you find that minimum acceptable standard of behavior, even in things that have not been written down by anyone for you in the code of conduct. Okay, because of my shortage of time, I'm going to move on to ethical leadership. And I want to also just lay down this principle. This is another thing I want you to take away from here. The first thing is that ethical choice framework, where you're asking yourself, is it the right thing to do? Is it the responsible thing to do? And also, is it generally acceptable? So is it compliant, meaning it's the right thing to do? Is it responsible? Then is it generally acceptable to do that? Keep that in mind, because it will help you take decisions that are in your interest without damaging the interest of others and keeping the common good. The second thing I would like you to take away from today is this particular framework. Many people say, I am religious. I am a strong moral person because my religion tells me what is the right thing to do and what is the wrong thing to do. But you see, if you're a moral person, very strong moral person, but you are unable to make the people around you also do the right thing, then you are an ethically passive leader. Your being ethical is of no consequence. So you can ask yourself the question, why are there so many mosques, so many churches, so many religious people all around, but they are unable to be good moral managers? In other words, they are unable to make the people around them also act according to those standards. Then they become ethically passive. You are not an ethical leader if you are just a strong moral leader. Of course, if you're a weak moral person and you are also unable to get people to do the right thing around you, you are an unethical leader. What about the person who is able to make everyone else do the right thing because they can whip people into shape, but they themselves do the wrong thing? Then they become hypocritical leaders. Ethical leaders are people who are themselves strong moral persons, and they are able to ensure that the right thing is done within their sphere of influence. That is an ethical leader. So if you are the CEO of an organization or you are the president of a country, it is not enough for people to say, oh, the man himself is very nice, he's very ethical. Sorry, it's just the people around him. It's the people around him. That's nonsense, because he chose the people around him. He's the one supposed to manage the moral environment around him. So if he does, he has failed as an ethical leader. Keep that in mind. Very, very important. So we should also try to understand that feedback, therefore, for an ethical leader, feedback is critical. It's very important that you know what is happening around you, why it is happening, how you can intervene, what interventions are needed. Remember what I said in the beginning, it is not easy. But if we do not do it, society will never change and we will never get the benefits of democracy and of development in our countries. So it is still worth doing. So some people are just traitors. They disguise what they're trying to do. Their desire to change is very high, but they conceal it. They are traitors. Watch out for them. But you have some people who are naysayers. They will say to your face, they're always saying it won't work, it should be done another way. They're naysayers. But you have critics, covert critics, overt critics. You should always be able to listen to your critics. So listen to your naysayers, even though they may be driven by jealousy. Listen to your critics, but be aware they may be driven out of envy. But traitors, you should never stomach around you. So There are also different kinds of people around you, because now for you to be a good moral manager, it's not enough for you to be moral. You have to be able to understand the people around you and what role they're playing. So you need to identify who is an ally, who's a friend, who's a blocker, who's an irritant, and try to relate with them accordingly. Finally, what is integrity? What it boils down to is consistently doing the right things and consistently doing things right. Again, consistently doing the right things and consistently doing things right. That is integrity. There are two building blocks for a life of integrity. It is the building blocks that I showed you that an ethical leader has. So consistently making moral or ethical choices, and then consistently managing to keep a moral or ethical environment around you, then helps you to maintain a life of integrity around you as well. So your character is who you really are, and it reflects your moral values, because it is out of there that you make your moral and ethical choices. So be aware of your character. But a lot of it is also shaped, and it's shaped by your beliefs, by your attitudes, your abilities, your thought patterns, lifestyle, and experiences, and so on. So again, as I said, it is the behavior that you demonstrate consistently that helps others to understand your character. And it is like smoke. It follows you everywhere you go. So you cannot fake your character for too long. It will come out in the end. So try and pay attention to your character. So you need to think about your character often, not only in a crisis. You need to know your moral and ethical boundaries. Not just know them, you need to have them, and watch what kind of influences come into your life. Okay. Let's get into conflicts of interest and ethical dilemmas in the last 5 or so minutes that I've got. A conflict of interest happens when your personal interests influence or appear to influence your ability to act in the best interest of your company, your group, your unit, your family, so many levels. That is when you have a conflict of interest. And let me tell you why conflicts of interest are so difficult to deal with. Because very often they are a choice between two good things. Should you be loyal to your spouse, or should you be loyal to your company? So the person whose spouse has put them under pressure to do something unethical at work to bring in money is now torn between being loyal to their spouse and being loyal to their company. That is what sets up an ethical dilemma. But as soon as you can resolve it in favor of one party over the other, then it's no longer a dilemma. It's just a choice for you to make. But while you are still in between the two, wondering, who am I going to accept to offend? Then you have a dilemma on your hands. So your level of understanding of your profession, level of exposure to ethics, your level of understanding of integrity, all of these things should help you resolve your conflicts or potential conflicts of interest and your ethical dilemmas as well. So sometimes you have to choose between truth and loyalty, between an individual and community, between a short-term goal and a long-term goal, between justice and mercy, all of these things. Should I report a colleague who is going to get disciplined, or should I take the path of justice, of mercy? But if I take the path of mercy, I'll be destroying some other things for the long term. What do I do? Now I have a dilemma. But when I can resolve what I do, it's no longer a dilemma, and I can just make an ethical choice. What is the right thing to do? What is the responsible thing to do? And what is the commonly acceptable thing to do? Okay, so my final words, therefore, it may not at first be so clear, perhaps before today, that only by choosing to act with professional ethics and morals can Africa be turned around. That the crux of our problem, whether it's a problem of environmental degradation or it's a problem of insurgency, you will still find corruption, inefficiency, and unethical behavior at the root cause. Whether it's to get the SDGs in place, to end hunger for everybody, the money that was supposed to go to farmers, we all know what happens to that kind of money, and so on. It's still back down to corruption. So if we don't take this very seriously today, we may not be the generation to move Africa to where it needs to be. It may also not have been so clear that sustainable change can only start from the individual. Remember, the individual has choices to make, adaptations to make from the conditions they find themselves in society. The actions of all of us together combine to create the norms in our societies. That's what leads us to believe, why should I be different? Everyone else is doing it now. And everybody else expects me to do it this way. So why should I be the odd one out? And that is how we keep the norms going. Living a life of integrity requires moral courage for us to act as ethical leaders. And at the core of it, excellence, morality, integrity, professionalism, and sustainability require the same core values. Doing the right things will make you excellent, and doing things right will make you excellent. Doing the right things, doing things right will make you moral. Doing the right things, doing things right will put you on the path of integrity. Doing the right things, doing things right will make you professional. Doing the right things, doing things right will help you sustain whatever it is that you're doing and bring sustainability into it. Those are the core values that cut across all of these things. So, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, my time is up. I'll leave it there. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Soji. Good afternoon. I think I had a little bit of a network glitch when you just joined. So I think I'm saying good afternoon to you for the first time today. Every time I listen to your presentation, I always have this sense of calm. I don't know if the rest of the audience actually has the same feeling, because you always hit the nail on the head. And this is something that we should continue to say to our people. We should continue to say to everybody, because the whole world is actually going left because of the gaps of integrity. I thank you so much for this presentation. And I think that IG also has his hands up and would like to say something. IG, please.
So my dear brother Soji, I thank you again. I cannot not thank you. I know you don't like to hear it, but I must thank you, because you see, it's like when the tank is running empty, we come to you and you refuel us. Okay? So each time you speak, it gives us courage to keep going. And I can't thank you enough. We've had a fantastic day. And for all the other people on the call, there's now money to be made from integrity. If you're looking for money, there's money to be made from living a life of integrity. And I have plenty of examples to share. I don't know if time will permit me. But the challenges of integrity come every day. Jamila, we faced one a couple of weeks ago in our office.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah. We faced one major one. It was tempting, but our position was clear. We stood by it, but life goes on, Jamila, right? And what was our conclusion? We said, anytime there's a temptation that comes like this, there's a big thing coming ahead. Jamila, remember that?
Yes, sir.
When that temptation comes, don't fall, because something bigger is round the corner.
Yeah.
We face it all the time. I've been running my business for 29 years now. I can tell you from experience. It has happened to me so many times. When there's a big temptation there, there's a bigger reward coming around the corner. Don't miss that reward. Don't miss it. Because if you fall for that temptation, you're going to miss the bigger reward. That I don't know what it is, whether it's spiritual, I don't know what it is, but it happens so often. And I want to say to you, don't think that you cannot live a life of integrity. At Construction Kaiser, from the top, we have decided that we want to run a business of integrity. And we have been growing. And that's why we decided to come and share our story with you. It is possible. Yes, it is. There's reward for businesses, for people that operate with integrity.
Yeah.
And you are free. Once you do that, you're free. You don't have any baggage. You have nothing to hide.
Honestly.
But when you start doing things, shady things, then you have things to hide. You start moving around with mobile police. You are afraid somebody's coming to shoot you. Why? Why do you want to do that? Why don't you live a life of integrity and be free? And know that you are free. And I can tell you, there's reward. Businesses now are looking for companies that operate with integrity. Clients are looking for companies that operate integrity. Organizations are looking for employees that have the right attitude of integrity. People are getting fired. They might be first-class graduates, but they are getting fired because they lack integrity. So my brothers and sisters on this call, I can't tell you, that I can only share my experience with you. Nothing more. I've been a graduate for 35 years. I've run my business for almost 30 years. And I can tell you that this is the right way to go. I can only share with you my experience. That's all I can do. I can't tell you what I don't know. I can only share with you the life I've practiced. So over to you, Jamila and Soji. You still have some time.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you. I also wanted to add to what you just said, IG, that Construction Kaiser, M&E Kaiser, and even Kaiser Foundation, we're surviving. So you don't think that if you don't go that route, you won't survive. Just like I just said, we've been here Construction Kaiser is a parent company, and it's been here for 29 years, will be 30 years next year. So the fact that, we didn't compromise earlier in the future, earlier in the life of the company, that is why we're still standing here. You see, that thing of delayed gratification is very, very true. Just know that whatever it is, just like he said, whatever it is that you are missing now, or that you think you are missing now, you are not missing it because it was never yours in the first instance. So don't take it. Don't take it. Just do what you need to do diligently. Do what you need to do with integrity, and just around the corner, you would get that thing that it is that you are looking for. And just don't. I mean, we all know what's happening in the society right now. We see 15-year-olds, they want to drive a G-Wagon. You see people doing all kinds of deplorable things because they're looking for money. Please don't. If you know anyone that is doing it, talk to them, let them know that there's nothing to that. You just enjoy the enjoyment of that that euphoria is very short-lived, very short-lived. There's nothing more after that. So please, let's talk to our people. And all of these people that are doing this, they are our brothers and sisters, they are our friends, they are our nieces and nephews, they are our village people. So let's talk to all the people around us, please, so that we play our own little part in ensuring that Nigeria and the rest of the world actually, veers back towards the right path. Mr. Soji, please, do you have any?
Mila, I have something to say before Soji comes in. I want to give a small example.
Okay.
Last year, when our last soft skills training,
yes,
we were supposed to have somebody speak on negotiation, and Soji is aware of this.
Yeah.
And 48 hours before, his father fell, and the father eventually died, so he couldn't speak. So we had an emergency. We're trying to look for a replacement speaker, and we contacted somebody from one of the top business schools in Nigeria, and he insisted we had to pay for the service. By the way, all these people who speak to you, they speak to you for free. We don't pay to anybody because we're a foundation. What we do, we generate our goodwill and use it to the benefit of you African youth. And they insisted that we needed to pay some money. And this was the night before the event. I remember Soji even had to prepare slides on leadership that night. Soji, you remember? And then the guy says we should pay money. And I said, look, we're a foundation. We don't pay money. And we refused to pay. And it was supposed to be for negotiation. Soji, this morning, we had a professor from IESE Business School in Spain come to speak to us on negotiation. And I want to tell you something. Typically, when they do that, they normally charge 50,000 euro, which is about 32 million naira. But they did it to us for free. That's an example of holding on to your values. We are a foundation. We don't pay for this service, but we refuse to pay despite the fact that we're in a difficult situation. And then look at what we got today for free. So what we do at Kaiser Foundation, we leverage our relationships to the benefit of all of you who are on this call. Because we care about you, we care about the future of Africa, we care about the future of the world. That's why we're doing what we do. So Soji, I just want to thank you again and give the mic back to you to speak. Thank you.
Mr. Soji, please, before you speak, there has been Nelson, his hand has been up for quite a while, and I'm really looking forward to what he has to say. I want to ask that we please give him an opportunity to speak. Nelson, please.
I hope you know Nelson is our intern. I hope you know he's our intern.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, Nelson.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Professor Soji, for that brilliant presentation. We really enjoy your presentation, sir. God bless you. My question is on ethical framework, where you highlighted the article is of the strong, the moral manager, and the weak. You make a classical example of the religious body. And they have the traffic to actually attract the population on how to live a moral and character well-being living. My question is, what exactly can we say to the religious body, in a particular in Nigeria as a context where we are? The more we have Christian, Muslim, the more the crime. Moral way of living is no longer there. Even though the pastor, the so-called pastor, the imam, that ought to preach the religious, what you write, the character way of living, morality, they are even the one being found in this mess of all you just mentioned. What is your message, sir, to the religious body on how to address this issue of character? Because we know character is everything. When you lack character, you lack everything. So what is your message to the religious body, sir? Both the Christian and the Muslim, all the religious body, to their followers. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Instead of rising to the bait of making a comment about the religious bodies, I want to make a comment about the religious people, you and I. And so what I was trying to explain is that if I count myself religious, but my religion does not come to bear in what I do, then it is passive. It makes no difference. It doesn't matter. Rather than the religious body, they have their own wahala. But for you and I who are here, we are the ones with the task to make sure that where we are, we live according to what we believe from the religious instruction, and we ensure that those standards are not compromised in front of us and under our watch. If everybody does that, Nigeria will change, our countries would change, regardless of what the religious leaders do with their religious bodies. So I'm really addressing you and I, sir.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you. Yes, I think the time is, we're actually at the nick of time, and Mr. Soji, thank you so much. Professor Soji, as you were just recently anointed. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. We are really grateful, and Kaiser Foundation will forever be indebted to you for the change that you're making to us as a foundation, and also to the people that are being impacted through us. I think that this brings the session for today to a wrap. But before we close, we'd like to take some group photos. So we'd like to ask everyone to please put on your videos so we can see your faces. Give us a nice smile, and then give our back-end people 30 seconds just to have a group photo with Mr. Soji. Thank you. Noah, please, can you give me a thumbs up that we're ready? Because I want to give you my action smile. Thank you. Noah, are we good? Uyi, please, you can send your question to us, and we will ensure that we get a response and send it back to you. Okay? Thank you. I think that is a wrap for today. Thank you very much, everyone. Please unmute your mics. Let's say hello to each other. Thank you so much, Mr. Soji. Thank you, IG, for always being here. Thank you to all the guys at the back end, participants.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you
so
everyone. Thank you
Appreciate your effort, the Kaiser Foundation. God bless you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Soji.
Bless you all.
Thank you.
Thank you, Construction Kaiser.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. We love you guys.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
We'll have the session tomorrow.
Thank you. We love you
Such a
all.
nice insight.
That will be.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, ma.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate it. Thank you.
Your foundation.
Thank you so much. Thank you. God bless you. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
See you same time tomorrow. Same place.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Madam Jella, you're muted. We can't hear you.
I've been saying, oh my God. Okay, I think you muted me. Someone muted me, Sha. I said, let's have some music tomorrow, please, so that we can, really celebrate the end of the session, the end of the successful program. Okay. Bye. Bye.